In the winter of 1867, a hush fell over the hamlet of Hallowridge, not from winter's cold, but from a new kind of wonder. A boy arrived who did not belong to simple explanations. He would not cry, would not burn with fever, and the instruments of Victorian medicine found themselves strangely useless. They called it an enigma. Some called it miracle. Others whispered a darker name. Hallowridge lay 2 days by cart from the nearest railway station. The year was 1867. Victorian England's sober gaze had begun to meet modern science. Yet country folk still kept old superstitions close. The local doctor, men from the vicarage, and a few curious townsfolk were the town's entire world. They tilled, they worshipped, and they feared winter. Into that small world came Elias Mercer, a child no one could place. Elias's mother, Margaret, was a seamstress, his father a day laborer. One morning he appeared at the door of the vicarage, pale, quiet, and with a stare that seemed to measure the bones of the room. He did not stumble. He did not cry. He simply looked, and the look stayed with anyone who met it. At first the oddities were small, a bruise that vanished overnight, a fever that dipped as soon as anyone called for a physician. But then came the things that could not be ignored. Young Elias would sleep for days without the rattle of pestilence in his chest. He ate little, yet kept growing, lean and strong. He never seemed to catch colds that swept through Hallowridge each winter. Mothers swore their milk curdled at his sight. The local doctor, Thomas Hale, who had seen broken legs healed and child fevers tamed, found himself without language for what he encountered. On the third week, a cartwheel severed a man's thumb in the marketplace. The man's blood pooled. Silent Elias approached, placed his small hand over the wound, and the bleeding slowed as if some invisible hand had tied the vein. The town watched in a stunned hush. The man did not complain. The doctor recorded it with a shaking hand. Word reached Dr. Samuel Pritchard in the county town, a man with a microscope and a ledger of cases. He came with skepticism. He watched Elias for a week. In the vicarage parlor, he measured pulse, looked at pupils, took notes on respiration and sleep cycles. He found contradictions at every turn. Elias's skin was cool, yet his cheeks were not pale. His heart beat steady, yet slower than normal. Blood tests, the crude ones of that age, showed no infection, despite wounds that should have festered. Back in London, letters crossed hands. Physicians and sympathetic men of new science debated. Could it be that a child held immunity of an unknown kind? Or was there a more disturbing force at play? Some visitors insisted on a spiritual explanation, a blessing, a curse, or possession, words that static-minded scientists despised. Rumors raced. At night, doors stayed shut. People left offerings of bread on sills or whispered a prayer when they passed Elias in the lane. Some mothers refused to let their children play where Elias might sit. Others watched from behind curtains, searching for proof of fraud. But then a boy who had been bedridden for months woke with a laugh the morning Elias sat by her pillow. A farmer's fever broke in the night. Two separate events, small, we say now, but to Hallowridge then they were evidence. Dr. Pritchard's notes grew thicker. He recommended cautious observation and wrote to the Royal Medical Journal with queries he could not yet publish as fact. In late spring, a terrible test came. A contagious fever swept through a neighboring village. Houses were sealed. Dr. Pritchard, now desperate for answers, brought Elias under observation in the county infirmary. They exposed him, carefully and ethically as they could then, to ordinary illnesses and wounds. Elias did not succumb. The wounds closed swiftly. Pritchard later recorded in his private notes that the boy's white blood cells, as they crudely examined them, appeared calm, not reacting, in the furious way described in textbooks. Those notes were never published. At the time, science feared the unknown. To publish might be to be ridiculed. But word leaked. Hush letters and whispers crossed counties. Then came the night of the storm. A landslip in the hillside cofferdam crushed the Miller family's home. Men were crushed. The cry for help was a living thing. Rescue was dangerous. Time was bleeding. Elias, who by now some believed to be a miracle and others a demon, ran with the rescuers. He found a small child trapped beneath timber and rock. Men could not lift it. Elias slipped beneath and pushed. The timber groaned, a man shouted, and the child emerged. The boy's small arms were scratched. But in the weeks that followed, Elias himself began to change. Where once his strange gifts seemed benign, now there were shadows in his sleep, strange nightmares. He would sometimes wail in a voice that belonged to no boy. Dr. Pritchard, who had seen the quiet miracle, now wrote of tremors, of fear in Elias's hands. On a bitter morning, Elias vanished. Some said he walked toward the river. Others swore they saw a carriage bear him away under cover of fog. No account could be verified. The town awoke to emptiness. In the years that followed, Hallowridge remembered. Babies born in the town bore names of Elias in whispered prayer. Dr. Pritchard moved on, published cautiously on cases of unusual immune responses, but he never solved what Hallowridge had shown him. The human body sometimes holds secrets that do not fit the neat boxes of the day. Scientists revise, religions argue, and small towns carry their own myths. Was Elias Mercer a medical miracle, an unknown immune anomaly, a child shielded by chance, or something stranger? The records are thin. Witnesses are unreliable. What remains is the story of a boy who made men with charts and microscopes admit, for a moment, that they did not know the answer, and perhaps that is the scariest thing of all for an age that believes every question has a map. If you enjoyed this slow burn mystery from the shadowed corners of Victorian life, subscribe to Nightwright Vault for more dark history and unexplained tales. Tell us below, do you think Elias was miracle myth or medicine's blind spot? Close the vault if you must, but come back when you dare.